Strange and the spooky, adventurous and loony, they're all together ooky, the Bud family. Their trips are amazing when people come to see 'em. They really are amazing, the Bud family. History, ghost, art. So put on a witch's shawl on, a seat so you can relax on. We're gonna play a call on the Bud family. Welcome to spooky season. It is officially October and officially spooky season. If you haven't seen our live, check it out. We did some dancing. Tomorrow we will be doing something. Angel kind of wants to go to Spirit of Halloween, so we'll see. Mostly depends on how she's feeling after work, what we're going to end up doing. So hang in there. That's up in the air. But between now and then, we've got a race. A monster race. It is a monster race. Not a monster mash, but a monster rash. That was a sentence, and I had it, and then I lost it. All right, are you ready? Here we go. Oh, also, I'm working on shout out for 2,300. It should be up hopefully next week, but we'll see. Ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so I support you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. You ready? Oh, I forgot to set it again. Okay. Go. Go. Come on. There we go. There we go. Okay. Oops. I got it started and I paused it. There we go. Okay. Let's see. I see Cruising Nuts. I see Shorty. I see Faces. I see Griselle. I see Ambos. I see Sylvia. Richard. Mark. Cal King. Let's see. Jamaican. Cruising Nuts. Goat. We go. Lower. Crazy. Kenny and Debbie. Distracted is currently in the lead. Barely. Let's see. There She Stole. There's Weekly. There's Pinned. Mark is currently in the lead as a Yiddy. There's Ohio. There's Frugal. Not Your Daily. There's Cable coming from the back. I've got a Werewolf from Ontario coming up. Let's see. Oh, it's going to be an Alien Swish. Hang on, Alien Swish. Or maybe that's a Siren Head. You guys decide. Alien or Siren Head? Okay, this is Swish Rips. And so he's got some little skits here under videos. And then his shorts are probably the best part. There's Joker, which you'll be seeing next week. No, in a couple weeks. And then he's got another short here, but he is mostly, what I see is this. He does these wonderful, not sketches, like calligraphy or something, where, maybe graffiti style, I don't know what to call it, of names. This one is Chicago, and I love his art style, and so check him out. Like, share, comment, and have a good day. I'll let this finish here. Ooh, pumpkin. Nice. Nice little jack-o'-lantern. That's very cool. Alright, Mayor Historian, tell us some things baseball related.
Well,
I'll pretend like I know anything.
You can pretend, you can guess, you can speculate. Just yesterday we had a passing that kind of shook the baseball world. He had been banned from the game and couldn't get into the Hall of Fame, but he was the all-time best hitter, and to my knowledge, it's hard to believe that he's gone, but he was one heck of a batter in his day. P. Rose. He was born in 1941, April 14th, Cincinnati, Ohio, one of 4 children, to Henry Francis Pete Rose and Laverne, the Blue Bomb. And encouraged by his parents to participate in sports, he played baseball and football at Western Hills High School. Now, while he was small for his age, he earned the starting running back position of his freshman football team, and when he was not promoted to the varsity football team in his sophomore year, Rose was dejected and soon lost interest in his studies. He ended up repeating his sophomore year in high school. Well, when Rose reached his senior year, he had used up his 4 years of sports eligibility, and in the spring of 1960, he joined the Class AA team sponsored by Frisch's Big Boy of Lebanon, Ohio in the Dayton Amateur League. Well, Rose would play catcher, second base, and shortstop, compiling a .626 batting average. That would have been the pinnacle of Rose's baseball career if not for the help of his uncle, Buddy Blowbaum, a bird dog scout for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, at his urging, the Reds, who had recently traded away a number of prospects who turned out to be very good, decided to take a chance on Rose. Upon his graduation from high school in 1960, he signed for a professional contract for $7,000.
Wow. Back
then, that was some serious money. Well, during the spring training game against the White Sox in 1963, Reds regular second baseman Don Blasingame pulled a groin muscle. Rose got his chance, made the most of it. During another spring training game against the New York Yankees, Whitey Ford gave Rose a derisive nickname, Charlie Hustle, after he sprinted to first base after drawing a walk. Now, despite, or perhaps because of the manner in which Ford intended it, Rose adopted the nickname as a badge of honor. In Ken Burns' documentary Baseball, Ford's teammate and best friend Mickey Mantle claimed that Ford gave Rose the nickname after Rose, playing in left field, made an effort to climb the fence to try and catch a Mantle home run that was about 100 feet over his head. According to Mantle, when he returned to the dugout, Ford said, "Hey, Mick, did you see that old Charlie Hustle out there trying to catch that ball?" Well, on April 8th, 1963, Rose made his Major League debut against the Pittsburgh Pirates at Crosley Field and drew a walk in his first plate appearance. Now, after going 0 for 11, not a good start, he got his first Major League hit in April 13th, a triple off of Pittsburgh's Bob Friend. He hit .273 for that year and would win the National League Rookie of the Year award, collecting 17 of the 20 votes. Mm. Well, Rose would enter the United States Army Reserves after the 1963 season, was assigned at Fort Knox for 6 months of active duty, followed by 6 years of attendance with the 478th Engineering Battalion, United States Army Reserve, at Fort Thomas, Kentucky. At Fort Knox, Rose was a platoon guide. Rose remained at Fort Knox to assist the sergeant in training the next platoon and help the other sergeant train the fort's baseball team. Later, his Fort Thomas service, Rose served as a company cook, which entailed coming in early for 1 weekend per month meeting so that he could leave early enough to participate in the Reds' home games. Now, other Reds who happened to be in that unit included Johnny Bench and Alex Johnson. Ooh. Now, in those early years, April 23rd, 1964, a road contest against the Houston Colt 45s, the precursor to the Astros, Rose reached first base on an error at the top of the ninth inning of a scoreless game and scored on another error. The Colts lost the game at the bottom of the ninth, and Ken Johnson became the first pitcher to lose a complete game no-hitter. Whoops. Well, there's a heck of a trivia question. Rose would slump late in the season on his bench. He finished with a .269 average. In order to improve his batting, Rose played in the Venezuelan Winter League with Leonis de Caracas during the 1964-65 offseason. Rose would come back to the Reds in 65, lead the lead in hits with 209, and at bats 670, finishing 6th in the NL MVP balloting. It was the first of 10 straight seasons for 200-plus hits, and his .312 batting average was the first of 9 consecutive 300 hitting seasons. He would hit a career-high 16 home runs in 1966, then switched positions from second base to right field the following year. Well, in 68, he started the season with a 22-game hitting streak, missed 3 weeks, including the All-Star game with a broken thumb, and then had a 19-game hitting streak late in the season. He had to finish the season 6 for 9 to beat out Pirates' Manny Alou and win the first of 2 close National League batting title races with a 355 average, or 335 average. He finished second to St. Louis Cardinal pitcher Bob Gibson for the NL MVP award, earning 6th place votes. Bob Gibson that year, the guy wasn't human. He was a machine. The following year, Rosewood set a career high in batting, 348, and tied his career best, 16 homers. As the Reds' leadoff man, he had 218 hits, walked 88 times, and paced the league in runs with 120. He hit 33 doubles, 11 triples, drove in 82 runs, slugged a .512 average, the highest mark in his long career, and had an on-base percentage of .432, also career best. Now, despite Pittsburgh's Roberto Clemente going 3 for 4 in his final game, Rose's 1 for 4 was good enough to win the title. Rose finished 348 to Clemente's 345. Very close. Now, 1970, brand new Riverfront Stadium had been open for only 2 weeks, on July 14th, 1970, when Rose was involved in one of the most infamous plays in All-Star Game history. Now, facing California Angels Clyde Wright in the 12th inning, Rose singled and advanced to second on another single by Los Angeles Dodgers Billy Garbarowitz. The Cubs' Jim Hickman then singled sharply to center. Well, Amos Otis went to throw. Paul went past Cleveland Indians catchers Ray Fosse as Rose slammed into him.
Oops.
There was a picture of him literally, not pretty. To score the winning run, Fosse suffered a fractured and separated shoulder, which went undiagnosed until the next year.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Fosse continued to hit for average and finished the season at .307, but with diminished power. He had 16 home runs before the break and only 2 afterwards. He played with the Indians until 1972, but never quite approached those first-year numbers. The collision also caused Rose to miss 3 games with a bruised knee. Now, in 1973, Rose would lead the league with 230 hits and a .338 batting average, en route to winning the NL MVP award and leading the Big Red Machine to the 1973 National League Championship Series against the Mets. Well, during the 5th inning of the Game 3 of the series, Rose was on first base when Joe Morgan hit a double play ball to Mets first baseman John Milner. Rose slid into second base in an attempt to break up the double play. This incited a fight with the Mets shortstop Bud Harrelson. Fight! This resulted in a bench-clearing brawl. When the Reds took the field, the game was nearly called off after the Shea Stadium crowd threw objects at Rose from the stands. Now, this disruption caused the Reds manager, South Dakota native, Sparky Anderson, to pull his team off the field until order was restored. Now, Mets manager Yogi Berra and players Willie Mays, Tom Seaver, Cleon Jones, and Rusty Staub were summoned by the NL president, Chub Feeney, out to left field to calm the fans. The Reds ended up losing the game, actually, 9-2, and the NLCS 3-2, despite Rose hitting .381 batting average in the series, including his 8th inning home run to tie Game 1 and a 12th inning home run to win Game 4. Now, the Cincinnati Reds of the 70s earned the nickname the Big Red Machine as one of the greatest teams in Major League history, including future Hall of Famers Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, and Tony Perez, and Pete Rose had a chance to be on that list too. Well, Rose was a significant factor in the Reds' success in the 75 and 76 years when he successfully moved from the outfield to third base. Earlier in his career, the Reds and then-manager Don Hefner tried to force Rose to third base, but Rose chafed at the move and said it was soon abandoned. In the spring of 75, manager Sparky Anderson, knowing that Rose would react to being forced to move, instead asked him if he would do it for the good of the team. Rose immediately agreed. What a concept.
How dare you?
Booth strengthened third base and helped solidify the Reds for those 2 championship seasons because it made room for the power-hitting outfielder George Foster. In 1975, Rose earned the World Series MVP honors and leading the Reds to their first championship since 1940, a 7-game triumph over the Red Sox. Rose led the team with 10 hits, a .370 batting average in 7 games. He was awarded the Hickok Belt as the top professional athlete of the year, as well as Sports Illustrated magazine's Sportsman of the Year award. The following year, Rose was a major force in helping the Reds repeat the World Series champions. The 1976 Reds swept the Philadelphia Phillies in a best-3-of-5 NLCS, followed by a 4-game sweep of the Yankees in the World Series. The 1976 club remains the only team since the expansion of the playoffs in 1969 to go undefeated in the postseason, and the Reds franchise has not lost a World Series game since Game 6 in 1975. They would have wins in the Game 7 of 1975 and 4-game sweeps in 76 and 1990. Now, on April 29th, 1978 at Shea Stadium, in a 14-7 rout against the Mets, Rose would hit a career-high 3 home runs off 3 different pitchers and go 5 for 6, which was in fact his greatest performance of his career. 6 days later, on May 5th, Rose became the 13th player in Major League Baseball history to garner a 3,000th career hit when he singled off Montreal Expos pitcher Steve Rogers in front of 37,823 fans at home field Riverfront Stadium. In 1978, Rose would single in the first inning of the Cubs off the Cubs pitcher Dave Roberts. Rose would then proceed to get a hit in every game he played until August 1st, making a run at Joe DiMaggio's record 56-game hitting streak, which had stood virtually unchallenged for 37 years. The streak started quietly, but by the time it had reached 30 games, the media took notice and had a pool of reporters accompanying Rose and the Reds to every game. On July 19th, in a game against the Phillies, Rose was hitless going into the 8th inning when he walked. His team was trailing in the 9th inning, and the streak appeared over, but the Reds batted through their entire lineup to give Rose another chance to bat. Rose
do it again.
Come on, give him another at bat. Ron Reed wound up facing Pete Rose, and Pete Rose laid down a perfect bunt single to extend the streak to 32 games. Rose would eventually tie Willie Keeler's 1897 single-season NL record at 44 games, but the streak came to an end on August 1st when Gene Garber of the Braves struck out Rose in the 9th inning. With 2 outs on a 2-2 count, Garber decided not to challenge Rose with a fastball. He took full advantage of Rose's predicament by throwing him an off-speed pitch out of the strike zone, which Rose swung at and missed. Rose was livid after the game, blasting Garber and the Braves for treating the situation like it was the 9th inning of the 7th game of the World Series.
What?
Garber took the comment as a compliment. I said to myself, well, thanks, Pete. That's how I try to pitch every time in a game.
Nah.
You want me to intentionally throw you a piece of candy? Come on,
Yes.
now. Well, the Philadelphia Phillies had won the National League East 3 years running, 2 of which were with 101-win seasons, but they were unable to make it to the World Series. In '79, the Phillies believed that Rose was the player that could bring them over the top, and they temporarily made him the highest-paid athlete in team sports history when they signed him to a 4-year, $3.2 million contract as a free agent. Well, with perennial all-star Mike Schmidt firmly entrenched at third, Rose moved to first base. Now, although the Phillies missed the postseason in Rose's first year with the team, they earned 3 division titles, one in the first half of the strike-shortened 1981 season, 2 World Series appearances in their first World Series title in 1980 in the following 4 years. Now, Rose also had the worst season of his career in 1983, which was also the season that the Phillies played in their second World Series in 4 years. The 42-year-old Rose batted only .245 with 121 hits and found himself benched during the latter part of the '83 season when he appeared periodically to play and pinch hit. Now, Rose did blossom as a pinch hitter with 8 hits and 22 at-bats, a .364 average. Well, Rose would bounce back in the postseason, batting .375 during the NLCS against the Dodgers and .312 in the World Series against the Baltimore Orioles. Rose went 1 for 8 in the first 2 games in Baltimore and was benched for Game 3 in Philadelphia, though he grounded out in a pinch-hitting appearance. In a pregame interview with Howard Cosell of ABC Sports, Rose objected to manager Paul Olin's decision to bench him. Rose would bounce back with 4 hits in the last 7 at-bats in the remaining 2 games, but the Phillies would lose the series to the Orioles 4-1. Now, Rose was granted an unconditional release from the Phillies in late October 1983, Phillies management wanted to retain Rose for the 1984 season, but he refused to accept a more limited playing role. Months later, he signed a one-year contract with the Expos. On April 13th, 1984, the 21st anniversary of his first career hit, Rose would double off Phillies' Jerry Koosman for his 4,000th career hit, becoming only the second player in the 4,000 hit club, joining Ty Cobb. Rose would play 95 games with the Expos, accumulating 72 hits and 23 RBIs while batting .259. Well, on August 15th, 1984, the Expos traded Rose back to the Reds for infielder Tom Lawless. Upon rejoining the Reds, Rose was immediately named player manager, replacing Vern Rapp as manager. Now, despite his .259 average for the season prior to joining the Reds, he hit .365 for the Reds in 26 games, 35 hits and 11 RBIs, and finished with a .286 overall average, a 41-point improvement over the 1983 season. Furthermore, Rose would manage the Reds to a 19-22 record for the remainder of the season. Though the role was once common, to date, Rose is the last person to serve both as a player and manager in Major League Baseball. Now, on September 11th, 1985, Rose would break Ty Cobb's all-time hits record with his 4,192nd hit, a single to left center field off San Diego Padres pitcher Eric Show. According to MajorLeagueBaseball.com, Major League Baseball continues to recognize Cobb's final total as 4,191, though independent research has revealed 2 of Cobb's hits were counted twice. It has been suggested that because of this, Rose actually broke Cobb's record against the Cubs' Reggie Patterson with a single in the first inning of the Reds' 5-5 called game against Chicago on September 8th. ABC's Wide World of Sports named Rose its Athlete of the Year after Rose broke Cobb's record. Rose accumulated a total of 4,256 hits before a final career at-bat, a strikeout against San Diego's Goose Gossage on August 17th, 1986. Now, in 2010, Deadspin reported Rose used cork bats during his 85 pursuit of the Cubs record. 2 sports memorabilia collectors who owned Rose's game-used bats for the season had the bats x-rayed and found telltale signs of corking.
Oops. Rose
had previously denied using cork bats, and in a report for ESPN the magazine, it is noted that Rose had associated with Tom Giosia, a manager of Gold's Gym in suburban Cincinnati that sold anabolic steroids in the late 1980s. Goliosa had first met and befriended Rose in 1978 during spring training, becoming a companion and runner to Rose over the next 6 years before bringing Rose to the gym in 84. Rose repeatedly had thought about taking a shot to help his bat speed near the end of his career, but he told Goliosa that it was too late to try something new. Attempts to tell Rose about dealing in the gym fell on deaf ears. Goliosa was later noted to be one of the individuals Rose made bets with, along with later being convicted of conspiracy to sell 110 pounds of cocaine, alongside filing a false tax return that included claiming a winning gambling ticket had actually been Rose's. Well, on November 11th, 1986, Rose was dropped from the Reds' 40-man roster to make room for pitcher Pat Pasillo, and he unofficially retired as a player. Rose finished his career with the number of Major League Baseball and NL records that have lasted for many years. Rose, always proud of his ability to hit 300 or better at 15 of his 24 playing seasons, had a lifetime batting average of .303. Now, as a manager, he remained with the club until August 24th, 1989, with a career record of .426 and .388 as a manager. Rose would rank 5th in the Reds' history for managerial wins. During the 4 full seasons at helm, the Reds posted 4 second-place finishes in the NL West Division. Now, he did get a 30-day suspension during a home game against the Mets on April 30th, 1988. Mookie Wilson hit what looked like a routine ground ball to shortstop, but the throw to first base was wide and pulled off the first baseman's foot on the bag. Umpire Dave Pallone did not immediately make the safe call, and first baseman waited for the call instead of making a play at the plate, allowing Howard Johnson to score all the way from second base. which would turn out to be the game-winning run. Rose, visibly angry and animated, vehemently argued the call. Within seconds, the dispute escalated to the point where Rose forcefully pushed the umpire twice. Big mistake.
Whoops.
Albeit with only his shoulder and forearm, but nevertheless knocking Pallone several feet backwards. Pallone promptly ejected Rose for touching an ump is ground for immediate ejection. Rose had to be forcibly restrained by the coaches as he came back at Pallone, claiming Pallone had initiated the physical contact. He can be seen in footage of the incident, pointing to his cheek, attempting to explain to umpire Eric Gregg that Pallone had poked him in the face. In his book, Pallone wrote an entire chapter on the incident and denied touching Rose, writing that NL personnel who investigated the incident later agreed with him. In the time it took to remove Rose, Cincinnati fans began showering the fields with objects that ranged from radios to cigarette lighters. Even though the inning was not over, all of the Reds players retreated to the dugouts. Reds owner Marge Schott posted a message onto the electronic billboard asking fans to quit throwing objects onto the field. After a 15-minute suspension of play, Pallone left the field, and the game was completed with the remaining 3 umpires. Now, NL President A. Bartlett Giamatti, remember that name, kids, suspended Rose for 30 days, which was, as of 2024, remains the longest suspension ever levied against a manager for an on-field incident. He also fined Rose a substantial amount which was not disclosed. Giamatti said such incidents are not business as usual and will not allow to become so. Giamatti also summoned Marty Brennaman and Joe Nuxtall, the Reds' on-air announcers, to his office in New York City and chastised them for inciting fan response with inflammatory and completely irresponsible remarks. Giamatti told Brennaman and Nuxtall there's no excuse for encouraging a situation where the physical safety and well-being of any individual is put significantly at risk. Nothing justifies such unprofessional behavior. Small note, I have seen umpires that you really wonder what the heck is going on between those ears.
Right.
Now, amid reports he had bet on baseball, Rose was informally questioned by Giamatti on February 1989 by Giamatti and Commissioner of Baseball Peter Ueberroth. With his lawyer present, Rose stated that he had bet on football, basketball, and horse racing, but vehemently denied the allegations of betting on baseball. By this time, Major League Baseball owners had elected Giamatti to succeed Ueberroth, and the outgoing commissioner decided to defer the matter to his successor. In the meantime, Sports Illustrated gave the public their first detailed report of the allegations that Rose had placed bets on baseball games on May 21, 1989. The cover story of the issue, dated April 3, 1989, Giamatti assumed office as the 7th Commissioner of Baseball on April 1st. 3 days later, John M. Dowd was retained to investigate the charges against Rose. Well, Dowd interviewed many of Rose's associates, including alleged bookmakers and bet runners. He delivered a summary of his findings to the commissioner in May. In it, Dowd documented Rose's alleged gambling activities in 85 and 86 and compiled a day-to-day account of this alleged betting on baseball games in 87. The Dowd report documented alleged bets on 52 Reds games in 87, citing Rose wagering a minimum of $10,000 a day, whereas others allegedly involved in the activities claimed the number was actually $2,000 a day.
Wow.
Now, although the Dowd report states no evidence was discovered that Rose had bet against the Reds, Dowd himself stated in a December 2002 interview that he believed Rose probably bet against the Reds while managing them. Those critical of Rose's behavior, including Ohio's own Hall of Fame baseball reporter Hal McCoy, observed that the major problem with Rose betting on baseball, particularly the Reds, is that the manager, he could control games, make decisions that would enhance the chances of winning his bets, thus jeopardizing the integrity of the game. Now, the Major League Baseball rule that Rose violated prohibits any bet on a game that the bettor is involved in, making no distinction between betting for or against one's own team. The Rule 21, misconduct, D, betting on baseball games, any player, umpire, or club, or league official or employee who shall bet any sum whatsoever upon any baseball game in connection with which the bettor has a duty to perform shall be declared permanently ineligible.
Oh dear.
That's a bit of a slam. Rose would continue to deny all of the allegations against him and refused to appear at a hearing with Giamatti on the matter. He filed a lawsuit in the Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas, the state trial court covering Cincinnati, alleging that the commissioner had prejudged the case and could not prevent a fair hearing. The Court of Common Pleas issued a temporary restraining order to delay the hearing, but Giamatti sought to remove the case to the federal United States District Court of the Southern District of Ohio. The Southern District of Ohio granted Giamatti's removal petition. The parties thereafter entered settlement negotiations. On August 24, 1989, Rose voluntarily accepted a permanent place on baseball's ineligible list. He accepted that there was a factual reason for the ban. In return, Major League Baseball agreed to make no formal finding with regard to the gambling allegations. According to baseball's rules, Rose could apply for reinstatement in 1 year, but Giamatti said there's absolutely no deal for reinstatement. That is exactly what we did. Not agree on a term or a fixed number of years. Rose, with a 412.373 record, was replaced as Reds manager by Tommy Helms. Giamatti, surprisingly, would die of a heart attack September 1st, 1989, 8 days after announcing Rose's suspension. Quite a stressful job, apparently. Now, on February 4th, 1991, the Hall of Fame voters formally to exclude individuals on the permanent ineligible list from being inducted in by way of the Baseball Writers Association of America vote. A long-standing unwritten rule already barred permanently ineligible players from enshrinement. At the beginning of the 2024 season, Rose, Tocopita Marciano was banned from 2024 for betting on his own team's games, and Roberto Alomar, who was banned in 2021 for sexual misconduct towards a female Toronto Blue Jays staffer, are the only former living players on the ineligible list, although former executive Chris Correa is also on the list for other infractions. Alomar was enshrined several years before his banishment, and while his plaque remains in the hall, players who are not selected by the BBWAA could be considered by the Veterans Committee in their first year after they would have lost their place on the baseball writers' ballot. Under the Hall's rules at the time, players could appear on the ballot for only 15 years, beginning 5 years after they retired. Had he not been banned from baseball, Rose's name could have been on the writers' ballot beginning in 1992 and ending in 2006. Rose would have been eligible for consideration by the Veterans Committee in 2007, but he did not appear on the ballot. In 2008, the Veterans Committee barred players and managers from the ineligible list for consideration. 8 years later, Rose would petition the Hall of Fame petitioned the Hall of Fame to prevent his name to be submitted for induction, saying that he had not expected to be prevented from consideration when agreeing to his lifetime ban. Now, although he remains ineligible for the Hall of Fame, artifacts from his career are on display inside the Hall's museum, located on the floor.
Mean.
Yeah, we're going to take your stuff from you, but you can't come in here. You are not a Hall of Fame member, but your equipment is. That's just mean. Wrong. Yeah. Like they say, is that his items on display, including on the floor above the plaque gallery. Rose was inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame in 2016. Well, in 1992, Rose did apply for reinstatement. Fay Vincent, who was deputy commissioner at the time and had played a key role in negotiating the agreement banning Rose before becoming commissioner, never acted on the Rose's application. In September of 1998, Rose applied for reinstatement with Vincent's successor Bud Selig, but also Bud never acted on it. In public comment, Selig said he saw no reason to reconsider Rose's punishment. In March of 2003, he acknowledged that he was considering Rose's application, leading to speculation that Rose's return might be imminent. However, Selig would take no action. Representatives for Rose applied in 2015 for reinstatement, this time with Selig's successor, Rob Manfred. On December 15th of that year,
Manfred rejected the request, stating that Rose had not been forthcoming about his gambling, and that Rose, who by this time was living in Las Vegas, was still betting on baseball. Although Rose was placing legal bets at the time, Major League Baseball had long barred players, managers, and coaches from any form of gambling on baseball, legal or otherwise. He also felt that Rose did not have a mature understanding of this wrongful conduct and that the damage it had done to the game. For these reasons, Manfred concluded that allowing him back in the game would be an unacceptable risk. Now, in 2020, Rose, along with his lawyers, again applied for reinstatement. In his petition, he stated that his gambling did not affect the outcome of games, whereas other players who had used steroids or used electronic signs to steal catcher signals did affect games, yet were not banned. He also sent a petition to the Hall of Fame Board of Directors asking them to repeal the 1991 ban on players on the ineligible list. Neither Manfred nor the Hall directors have responded to this position as of 2024. And in 2022, Rose yet again would apply for reinstatement. In the letter to Manfred, he stated that he still thinks every day about what it would mean to be considered for the Hall of Fame. Manfred would quickly reject the request, stating that any Hall of Fame discussion would be deferred to the Veterans Committee. When asked in March of 2023 about whether or not Major League Baseball's emerging partnerships with sports books would have an effect on Rose's ban, Manfred quickly shot down speculation about possible reinstatement and later reaffirmed his stance when further asked about this event at the season's All-Star game. Well, some of the other side items that had happened to Rose since then, after he got knocked out of baseball in April 20th, 1990, Rose would enter a plea of guilty to 2 charges of filing false income tax returns not showing the income he received from selling autographs and memorabilia and from horse racing winnings. On July 19th, he was sentenced to 5 months in minimum security prison in the United States Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, and fined $50,000. He was released on January 7th, 1991, and after paying $366,000 in back taxes and interest, and was required to perform 1,000 hours of community service. In 1999, Rose was selected as an outfielder to the Major League Baseball All-Century team. To select the team, the panel of experts first compiled a list of the 100 greatest players from the past century. Fans then voted on the players using paper and online ballots. An exception was made to Rose's ban to allow him to participate in the pregame introductions of the All-Century team before Game 2 of the 1999 World Series game between the Braves and the Yankees. Despite never having been a member of the Braves, Rose received the loudest ovation of all Century team members from the crowd at Turner Field in Atlanta, Georgia. After the ceremony was on live television, NBC's Jim Gray repeatedly asked Rose if he was ready to admit betting on baseball and to apologize. Many people were outraged over Gray's aggressive questioning, feeling it was distracted from the ceremony. In protest, Yankee outfielder Chad Curtis refused to speak with Gray after his game-winning home run in Game 3. Earlier that season, Rose had been ranked number 25 in the Sporting News' list of 100 greatest baseball players. In 2002, Rose appeared during the 2002 World Series in a MasterCard-sponsored event, recalling baseball's most memorable moments. Fans voted for Rose's record-breaking hit over Ty Cobb as the 6th most memorable moment in baseball history. Now, while allowing him to participate in the All-Century team in a September 2010 celebration at Great American Ballpark on the 25th anniversary of the hit, 4,192, Major League Baseball has refused Rose to participate in any other events in Cincinnati, such as the 25th anniversary reunion of the Big Red Machine, the closing of Synergy Field, and the opening of the Great American Ballpark, as well as the closing of Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia and the 1980 Phillies anniversary celebrations. The year before his retirement in 2015, Selig stated that Rose could participate in the festivities for the game, which was held in Cincinnati with subjective guidelines, and Rose took the field alongside Reds teammates prior to the game. In 2016, Rose had his jersey retired by the Reds, which had been approved by Major League Baseball. Now, in his autobiography, My Prison Without Bars, published by Rodale Inc. on January 8, 2004, Rose admitted publicly to betting on baseball games and other sports while playing for and managing the Reds. He also admitted to betting on Reds games, but he said he never bet against the team. Rose repeated the admissions on an interview on the ABC News program Primetime Thursday. In the book, he stated he hoped his admissions would help end his ban from baseball so he could reapply for reinstatement. Later in 2004, ESPN broadcast the television film Hustle, starring Tom Sizemore and directed by Peter Bogdanovich, which was primarily based off the Dowd Report. In 2007, March, during an interview on the Dan Patrick Show on ESPN Radio, Rose said, "I bet on my team every night. I didn't bet on my team 4 nights a week. I bet on my team to win every night because I loved my team. I believed in my team. I did everything in my power that every night to win that game." Dowd disputes Rose's contention that he bet on the Reds every night, asserting that Rose did not bet on his team when Mario Soto or Bill Gullickson pitched. A notebook detailing Rose's daily betting activity shows Rose placed bets on 5 of the 6 games Soto started in 1987. The lone exception was April 26, 1987, when Rose allegedly placed bets on hockey and basketball games, but no baseball games. There also were 4 games Rose did not bet on the Reds when Gullickson started. Now, the criticism of Rose did not diminish after his admission. Some Rose supporters were outraged that he would reverse 15 years of denial as part of a book publicity tour. In addition, the timing of the called into question by making his admission just 2 days after the Hall of Fame announced its class of 2004 inductees, Rose appeared to be linking himself publicly to the Hall. Now, even after the 2004 admission, Rose had described his violation of Major League Baseball rules with what journalist Costilla Kennedy described as a kind of swagger, that familiar screw you defiance. On September 11, 2010, at a roast of Rose held at the Hollywood Casino Lawrenceburg in Indiana on the 25th anniversary of his hit, and attended by many teammates, Rose wept when he acknowledged that he has disrespected baseball. He apologized to Perez and other members of the Big Red Machine, stating, "I guarantee everyone in this room I will never disrespect you again. I love the fans, I love the game of baseball, and I love Cincinnati baseball." His words and crying surprised those present. The Cincinnati Enquirer reporter said it felt completely unscripted, completely sincere, very powerful. I've covered Rose for more than 25 years, and I never heard him like that. In June of 2015, ESPN concluded its own investigation of Rose and determined that he had bet on baseball while still a player manager. The results of the investigation were made public, revealing the records of bets made by Rose. Federal authorities had seized the records from one of Rose's associates. Now, in 2014, June 16th, Rose returned to managing a professional baseball team for 1 game, serving as a guest manager of the Bridgeport Bluefish, a Connecticut-based team. Rose's cameo as a manager did not violate his lifetime ban, as the Bluefish played part of the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, which is unaffiliated with Major League Baseball. Rose also coached first base and signed autographs for fans as the Bluefish defeated the Barnstormers from Lancaster 2-0. Sadly, as we were going to mention, is that he finally passed away yesterday. I think he was 82 or 83. But it's just kind of amazing that, here's a guy who played baseball for parts of, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, 3 years, three decades. He had the most hits of any player in Major League Baseball history. And because he got stupid and started betting on games, he never got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, the other guy that, when it comes to mentioning players getting banned and getting denied from the Hall of Fame, the other thing that I was looking at with Pete Rose, in the last, I would say, good 2 decades, I've seen it more that the younger generation have been more empathetic towards Rose. He made a mistake. they should let bygones be bygones, but at the same time, it's in the baseball bylaws. You know, you bet on the game, you just threw away your chance. And here's a guy that had been in baseball again, how many decades? Now, the other guy who, and this is where it kind of relates back to me, because I remember hearing about this guy in the 80s, and then, of course, The Field of Dreams, the movie. Shoeless Joe Jackson was a heck of a player in his day. This was back in the before Babe Ruth and guys like that, you know. He started in 1908, and he would wind up actually playing his last season in 1920 for the White Sox. He played for the Athletics, the Indians, and he won one title in 1917. But what was kind of crazy is, okay, first of all, he was illiterate. At that time, when he was young, they didn't really have money for him to go to school. At 6 or 7, he was working in one of the town's textile mills as a lint head, as they called him, for a mill hand. Family finances required him to take a 12-hour shift at the mill. Since education was a luxury the Jackson family couldn't afford, he was uneducated. The lack of education actually became an issue throughout his life. Now, this is one thing I remember hearing about. He, because he was illiterate, he could autograph his pictures. His wife would. So if you found an autograph of him that could be verified, one autograph in 2023 was worth about $55,000. Pretty good price. Also, when he would go to restaurants with the team, usually he would ask somebody to read the menu to him, or he would wait for one of his teammates to order and then order one of the items that he'd heard. Well, in 1900, when he was 13 years old, his mother was approached by one of the owners of the Brandon Mill, and he started to play with the Mill's baseball team. He was the youngest player on the team. He was paid $2.50 to play on Saturdays, or about $92 in today's money. He was initially a pitcher, but one day he accidentally broke another player's arm with a fastball. Well, no one wanted to bat against him, so the team manager placed him in the outfield. His hitting ability made him a celebrity around town, and about that time he was given a baseball bat that he named Black Betsy. As compared to the Champ Osteen, another player from the Mills who made it to the majors, and he moved from mill team to mill team to search for better pay, playing semi-professional baseball in 1905. Well, in an interview published in October of 1949 of Sport magazine, Jackson recalled how he got the nickname Shoeless Joe Jackson. Well, playing at a mill game in Greenville, South Carolina, Jackson had gotten blisters on his feet from a new pair of cleats, which hurt so much they took his shoes off before he at his at bat. Well, as play continued, a heckling fan noticed Jackson running to third base in socks, just wearing socks, and he shouted, "You shoeless son of a gun, you!" The resulting nickname, Shoeless Joe Jackson, stuck with him through the remainder of his life. Well, early in his career, he began, baseball, hometown minor league team, the Greenville Spinners, as a 15-year-old. Eventually, he signed with Wayback to play for the Athletics. So Jackson started his career. With the Spinners, he was making $75 a month. Back then, that was a lot of money. Hit .346 to lead the Carolina Association. And in August of 1908, his contract was purchased by Wayback and immediately reported to the Athletics and made his major league debut. Though for the first 2 years of his career, Jackson had some trouble adjusting to life with the Athletics. Reports conflict of whether he did not like the big city or he was bothered by the hazing from his teammates. Consequently, he spent much of that time in the minors. Between 1908 and 1909, Jackson appeared in just 10 Major League Baseball games. During 1909's season, Jackson played 118 games for the South Atlantic League's Savannah Indians, and he batted .358 for the year. The Athletics gave up on Jackson in 1910, trading him to the Cleveland Nats. He spent most of the 1910 season with the New Orleans Pelicans of the Southern Association, where he won the batting title and led the team to the pennant. Late in the season, he was called up to play on the big league team, and he appeared in 20 games for the Nats and managed a batting average of .387. Well, in 1911, Jackson's first full major league season, he set several rookie records. He hit .408 that season, is a record that still stands and was good for second overall in the league behind Ty Cobb's .419, one of the few times in baseball history that a batting average above 400 did not win the batting title. His .468 on-base percentage led the league. The following season, he'd bat .395 and lead the American League in hits, triples, and total bases. On April 20th, 1912, Jackson scored the first run of a Tiger Stadium. The next year, he led the league with 197 hits and a .551 slugging percentage. Well, in August of 1915, Jackson was traded to the White Sox. 2 years later, Jackson and the White Sox won the American League pennant, but also the World Series. And during that series, he hit .307 as the White Sox would defeat the Giants. Now, he missed most of the 1918 season working in a shipyard because of World War I. In 1919, he returned strongly to post a .351 average during the regular season and .375 with perfect fielding in the World Series. However, the heavily favored White Sox would lose the series to the Cincinnati Reds. The following season, the 30-year-old Jackson would bat .382. He is having one of his best overall seasons, leading the American League in triples and setting the high margins career marks for home runs, RBIs, and fewest strikeouts per plate appearance when he was suspended, along with 7 other members of the White Sox, after allegations surfaced that the team had thrown the previous World Series. Now, this is what was later known as the Black Sox scandal. After the 1919 World Series, Jackson and 7 other White Sox players were accused of accepting $5,000 each, equivalent to $88,000 in 2023 money, to throw the series. And in September of 1920, a grand jury was convened to investigate the allegations. Now, tell me if this doesn't seem a little strange. Jackson hit 12 base hits and set a series record that was not broken until 1964. He led both teams with a .375 batting average, .286 in the games the White Sox lost, and .545 in the games they won, committed no charged errors, and even threw out a runner at the plate. However, the Reds had hit an unusually high number of triples, 3 out of the 9 total, to Jackson's position in left field. The Sox pitchers and the team's outfielders were playing out of position and slowly fielding balls. It was alleged Jackson admitted to participating in the fix during grand jury testimony on September 28, 1920. In 1921, the Chicago jury acquitted Jackson and 7 teammates of wrongdoing. However, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the newly appointed commissioner of baseball, would impose lifetime ban on all 8 players. He said, regardless of the verdict of juries, Landis declared, no player that throws a ball game, no player that undertakes or promises to throw a ball game, no player that sits in conference with a bunch of crooked players and gamblers where the ways and means of throwing games are planned and discussed and does not promptly tell the club about it will ever play professional baseball. After the grand jury returned its indictments, Charlie Owens of the Chicago Daily News wrote a regretful tribute headline stating, "Say it ain't so, Joe." The phrase became legendary when another reporter later earnestly attributed it to a child outside the courthouse. In an interview with Sport nearly 3 decades later, Jackson confirmed that the legendary exchange never occurred. Now, there is some dispute. It remains controversial to this day. He reportedly refused the $5,000 bribe twice, even though it would effectively double his salary, only to have teammate Lefty Williams toss the cash on the floor of his hotel room. Jackson tried to tell White Sox owner Charlie Comiskey about the fix. Still, Comiskey refused to meet with him. Unable to afford legal counsel, Jackson was represented by team attorney Alfred Austrian, a clear conflict of interest. Okay, first of all, he is already illiterate, and you're throwing around $5,000. Now, before Jackson's grand jury testimony, Austrian allegedly elicited Jackson's admission to the supposed role of the fix by plying him with whiskey.
Ooh.
Austrian also persuaded a nearly illiterate Jackson to sign a waiver of immunity from prosecution. Now, years later, the other 7 players implicated in the scandal confirmed that Jackson was never at any of the meetings. Williams say that they only mentioned Jackson's name to give their plot more credibility, although they did not say why Jackson would have been paid $5,000 had that been the case. Jackson's performance during the series itself lends further credence to his assertions that although the game records show he had hit far better during the clean games than those thrown, a 1993 article in the American Statistician reported that the results of the statistical analysis of Jackson's contribution during the 1919 World Series and concluded that there was substantial support to Jackson's subsequent claims of innocence. An article in September 2009 issue of Chicago Lawyer magazine argued that Ellis Asanoff's 1963 book, 8 Men Out, purported to confirm Jackson's guilt, was based on inaccurate information. For example, Jackson never confessed to throwing the series, as Asanoff claims. Further, Asanoff omitted key facts from the public available documents, such as the 1920 grand jury records and proceedings of Jackson's successful 1924 lawsuit against Comiskey to recover the back pay of the 1920-21 seasons. Asanoff's use of fictional characters within a supposedly non-fiction account added further questions about the book's historical accuracy. Now, in 1989, here comes another familiar name, Major League Baseball Commissioner A. Bartlett Giamatti declined to reinstate Jackson because the case was how now best given to historical analysis and debate as opposed to present-day review with an eye to reinstatement. In November of 1999, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution lauding Jackson's sporting achievements, encouraging Major League Baseball to rescind his ineligibility. The resolution was symbolic, since the U.S. government had no jurisdiction in the matter, and Jackson had died in 1951, some 48 years earlier. Commissioner Bud Selig stated that Jackson's case was under review, but no decision was issued during Selig's tenure. In 2015, the Shoeless Joe Jackson Museum formally petitioned Commissioner Rob Manfred for reinstatement on grounds that Jackson had more than served his sentence in the 95 years since his banishment. Manfred denied the request after official review, writing, "The results of this work demonstrate to me that it is not possible now, over 95 years since those events took place, and was considered by Commissioner Landis to be certain enough of the truth to overrule Commissioner Landis' determinations." Now, in 2020, ESPN reported that Major League Baseball had shifted its policy and that the league has no hold on banned players after they die.
Oops.
Because the ineligible list bars players from privileges that include a job with Major League clubs. It's unclear how this might affect Jackson's Hall of Fame prospects. But, here's 2 guys, again, at their time, they were awesome hitters, awesome players. One was the best all-time hitter in history. The other one was a absolute beast of a player with great talent for, seeing and hitting and great numbers, who was caught in a really bad situation in Chicago. But, I think Pete Rose should have gotten in. He admitted he made mistakes, but, it's now to the point that, put him in a rest in peace situation. But, yeah, I think baseball, part of the phrase, dropped the ball. So, but this has been the Bearded Historian touching on baseball. Welcome to the playoffs. Have a good one.
Baseball.